ET is Ryan Seacrest here. People always say it's good to unwind, but that's easier said than done. The exception, Chumba Casino. They actually make it easier done than said, or at least the same. Chumba Casino is an online social casino with hundreds of casino-style games like slots and blackjack. Play for fun. Play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Sign up now and collect your free welcome bonus at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Hops Geek News, your home for comic books, movies, TV shows, and typically we feature a beer of the week. We have another really great creator-focused episode for you as our dear friend, Trevor, from Pocket Watch Press. You've known him for projects such as Area 51, the Helix Project, Minutes to Midnight, and then today we are going to talk an excellent comic book called Rise. Sometimes superheroes don't feel so super. Maybe they don't feel up to the task at hand. And this comic book kind of takes us into these more morality issues, if you will, behind superheroes. So before we get to that, though, make sure to like, subscribe, share, all the good stuff that they always make us say. Do us a favor, help the podcast grow, drop a review. Hops Geek News, any podcasting platform, any social media platform, that's where you can find us. We do things such as our Cantina Hours. We love to do creator-focused episodes. We're talking all sorts of good things that coming up and down out the pipe. June is getting ready to wrap up. It actually did just wrap up when this comes out. So lots of great TV has been out. So we've been talking The Boys, The Acolyte, things of that nature. And my beer of the week comes from Philadelphia, born and raised. But don't worry, this is not getting sent to California at all. It is brewed and canned by Human Robots. It is a Czech-style dark lager called Tamavi 13 Degrees, proudly made in Philadelphia, like I said, by Human Robot. It's a good old lager, good old fashioned. We keep it simple some days, man. Just keep it simple. And Lauren actually brought me this one when she went to Philadelphia. We met back up in DC. Good things. You saw that. Lauren, what do you have over there?
The same one.
What? I felt this was a good beer to pick because, like I said, our friend Trevor, he's been on the podcast before. And then if you followed our excursions throughout MegaCon Orlando this past February, we were with our boy. He is not even up and coming at this point. Like I said, I mentioned before when we first had him on, man, this is somebody in the comic book sphere that you really need to pay attention to. I get it. Everybody loves to pick up their tried true people. However, Trevor you can see it from his writing, the people he works with, the way he just carries himself throughout comic books. It's not going to be long before somebody's going to give you that phone call and they're saying, hey, let's go, bud. And in the meantime, you're doing killer work. So Trevor, welcome back, dude. What's up, man?
Oh man, that's maybe the best introduction I've ever had. Thank you. I'm so stoked to be here. I miss you guys. It feels like February was forever ago.
It does.
And I think we're due for another one of those convention excursions sometime in the relatively near future.
That was a hell of a weekend. I mean, you're practically family now. You met half of my family.
You are. I mean, we're just like, dude, come along. You're coming with us. Let's go. And
I drank beer for you guys.
You did.
You true. Did. You're a liquor person.
Hopefully
but
the next
our last brewery, not the last brewery, but the one brewery did have a full bar. I was like, oh, Trevor's going to be happy here.
Yeah.
That was Gatlin Hall, wasn't it, Lauren? Was that what?
Yeah, they have a full bar. Yeah,
they do have a full bar, and hopefully the next convention or the next time we meet up, period, there's some more distilleries. Because first of all, I also love me a good bourbon, just like you like the finer things in life. But dude, it was a killer weekend, man. I would 100% die. Like you're in the family, man. In the family, it was such a good time. You've been out there skirting around. I saw you at Heroes Con. So dude, let's dive in. What can you tell us about Rise? Or in the meantime, like fill us in even Heroes Con. Like I know you're talking a little bit before. How did everything go? How's everything been?
Yeah, it's been great. Heroes Con was my first time back on the road since Orlando, which is crazy because it was the longest spell of no traveling I've had in 2 years. So I was just fiending and ready to go. Anxiously awaiting the first printing of Rise #1 to hit my doorstep so that I could bring it to the show. But we were very fortunate, and I was able to do that and premiere it with my collaborator, Ryan Best, who drew the A cover and the interiors, and it was an amazing time. Heroes Con is such a comic book community driven show. It is about comics. It is for people who love comics. And so like spiritually, it always feels like a great reset for me, but getting to do it with my collaborator and launch that book together was particularly special. And you know, since the last time I was there, I mean, my creative catalog has doubled. So that was, you know, a different experience. Apropos of my inability to plan things ever, I did not think about how I would have to fit more books on my table or how I would display them. So that took a little bit of adjusting, but we made something that didn't look too terrible. Not particularly good, but not too terrible. But yeah, it was great. And you know, like I said, really special experience getting to see my signature on a book with my collaborator's signature. It felt like a real stepping stone in the career.
Yeah, dude.
Well, and anybody who picks up your comics, like they don't look like, oh, this is an indie first time creator kind of comic. Like the artists you have picked to go with your stories are all phenomenal. It's like I have the Minutes to Midnight right here, and like some of the artwork in there is just like absolutely gorgeous. Like you have so many pieces that are frame worthy in these comics. And before we go into Minutes to Midnight and into Rise, because Rise is the current campaign going on right now, can you tell us a little bit how that has, because even Rise has gorgeous artwork. So tell us a little bit about how you picked the specific artist and what made you pick who you picked for Rise.
Sure, yeah. So I am a very character-driven writer, and so for me, I often prioritize an artist's ability to be a good character actor, right? To be able to draw expression or frame it in such a way, using lighting and perspective to make it feel really dramatic and emphasized. That is something that I think about a lot because that to me is the most effective way at drawing somebody into the story, because now they can reflect those emotions that they're seeing on the page within themselves. And so that's always a thought process. But for me too, like just an artist's approach to rendering and to storytelling, really, I mean, it just has to come down to what the soul of the story is. You know, Minutes to Midnight was an interesting excursion because I was working on 4 stories at once with 4 different artists. And that was after working 2 years on the same book, same project, same story. So for me, putting the teams together was the most crucial thing I think I could have done throughout the production process. And it was just trying to attack like what the core of a story was and sort of thinking about how things might evolve over time. I mean, the first story, Minutes to Midnight, The Marvelous Misadventures of the Melancholy Man, is the only one of those stories that was originally planned to be syndicated. So I knew that I could start somewhere and kind of maybe juxtapose some story elements, some thematic elements against this pre-established style. You know, it's almost like a combination of Pixar animation and watercolors. And so I was thinking long game with that. But then, you know, you have something like Reflections and Other Little Devils. I wanted it to feel sort of surrealist, but also like have some elements of illustrative realism and get really weird with the page layouts. Like it's the most DC Vertigo thing I've ever done. It was effectively my love letter to those comics. And then Time Fleeting, War Immortal, you know, we changed, the same artist changed art styles like 6 times in that story because we were jumping from time to time and we wanted them to feel different. We wanted to capture sort of our collective quote unquote memory of what those battles were like, even though the memory doesn't exist anymore. It's just like thinking about how we were going to replicate that with color and with lighting and with shadow and texture and the way those things are all combined. And I mean, like Seth just like set out on a complete tour de force in that story. And which is crazy because originally we had another artist doing that story who did the A cover for Minutes to Midnight, and through a series of unfortunate events, you know, we ended up having to let him go due to reliability issues. But you know, Seth's art style, while wildly different from that original artist, I think ended up fitting the story way better. And then, you know, Bear Market Businessman, I needed it to be a very intimate, like character-driven story because it is so simple, you know.
I got emotional reading that one.
Yeah,
that one was very like pulled at my that was a fantastic story, very emotional.
And it was simple, you know. It's the simplest story. It really relied on the characters and their acting and their emotionality. And ironically, that was my first collaboration with Ryan Best. That was my testing ground before we worked on Rise together. So you
Okay.
kind of get to see a lot of that skill set carry over in what we were doing with Rise. And it leans into that, because what I liked from him and what I still love about Ryan's work is that he uses really bold, expressive lines, and yet everything feels so alive and fluid. It sometimes, when you have an artist with really bold line work, the art can feel super stiff. And when you're doing interiors, there needs to be a momentum, like a kineticism, and Ryan captures that while still being super delicate, which is a fine balance. And he has he bridges this gap between sort of the traditional interior comic art aesthetic and being modern and thoughtful in his approach. And like I was saying, you can really see a lot of what we were doing in Bear Market carry over, even down to like how great he is with drawing the cape in
Dude,
Rise.
you read my mind. I was just about to say how the cape, like, look at the cover of the cape, right?
Mhm.
The cover of the comic book, the cape, you see it flowing. It's clearly flowing in the wind as he's getting the eagle to land on him. It's like you read my mind about the cape, because that's literally was my first thought when I looked at the cover.
And it's become such a big focal point for us moving along into the series, using the cape as an extension of his posture, as an extension of his acting. It is almost like another body part for us in this story. And aside from being like a complete, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a complete design hack. Like, you can do so many cool visual things, but now we can do emotional things with it. But aside from that, it's crazy, because when we were working on Bear Market, one of like the second to last page in that story is a splash page, and there's a lot of clothing moving in the wind, shoelaces, ties, whatever. But the momentum and the kineticism of that, I remember complimenting him and still somehow being really surprised when he ended up being like one of the best cape rendering artists I've ever seen. And I didn't make that connection until literally a week ago. But yeah, that, I mean, for me, a lot of it is like, what is the emotional core of the story? Tonally, what am I going to use as a device to accomplish that? And then just kind of thinking about how stylistic elements cater, so like Seth's style in Time Fleeting War Immortal is generally pretty ink and texture heavy. He does a lot of rendering work. And then, Raymond's colors were generally a little bit more like secondary tones, like a little bit more muted, but still poppy, versus, Marvelous Misadventures of the Melancholy Man. It's super bright, it's watercolored, it's soft, really expressive, but simple forms, so that's sort of what I start to think about when I am looking for somebody to collaborate with on a project. And I've been super fortunate throughout the last 3 years of my career, and working with like talents that are by far and away ready for the big time, but for some reason people aren't giving them that opportunity. So I'm damn happy to.
Yeah, no,
Well,
you definitely have some fantastic artwork. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, it's funny you mentioned, ready for the big time, but haven't gotten the opportunity. I mean, just reading Rise, for example, there's this mature feeling to it. And it's not talking about how it's mature for adults. It's no, like, this is something that you open and it's like, this isn't their first time. You can just clearly see that there's this level of professionalism that everybody involved, down to the lettering, to the way you write, to the art style, like everything is like, oh, they've been here before. Which a lot of people I feel like often overlook when they think of Kickstarter campaigns. They're like, oh, it's just somebody who just thinks they can make a comic and all that stuff. But no, like, without a doubt, just right off the bat, I thought it was funny, your forward, that you were like, I've never really done one of these before, kind of fuck it, deal. Here's what it is, a superhero story. And then just going into the pages, just there's a level of maturity that you and the team have that I feel like even some professional, quote unquote, right, professional comic book creators don't often have, man.
I appreciate that. I think I've never been more paranoid producing a story than I have for Rise, because first of all, I said for years I was not going to do independent superheroes. I didn't see a point to it. I thought it would just be rehashing a less good version of something that I love and that everybody else loves. So if I was going to do it, I really wanted everything about it to feel unique, but still loving to the genre. And not different for the sake of being different, but different insofar as using the lens of the superhero genre to tell a different kind of story. And it's I mean, even down to like the simple superhero saves, and like how does this character respond to it, and what does that say about him in the way that he's handling these things? What is he thinking about? How is he physically moving throughout the space? And so no, I'm so glad to hear that that landed well, because I'm paranoid about all these little details. I don't want this to be my Superman. I want this to be Rise.
Right.
Right.
Speaking of, because Matt obviously gave us a little bit of an introduction. So before we go more into Rise, I'd like you to tell us a little bit about it and what makes him different. Because one of the things I first noticed was this wasn't your typical like, oh, I'm Spider-Man and or Superman or
I'm
Clark Kent
happy
and
to
I
do
have
this every second of every
right.
day.
But everybody I love has an issue with it, and that was actually a little bit of the opposite here, which I thought was actually pretty cool. So, and there's obviously something else that Matt did mention that makes this superhero very unique. So, why don't you give us like explain how you pitch Rise and what makes Rise not your average superhero comic?
Sure, yeah. So this story is a really intimate superhero drama that takes the hero's journey and flips it on its head. It's about a man who needs to ground himself in order to truly be extraordinary. As we sort of use the concepts, or I guess an examination of performative masculinity and the perils of the male ego, to ask what would happen if a Superman had to feel good to do good. This guy's powers scale with the amount of dopamine in his bloodstream, so it is like his performance is beyond psychological. I mean, it is, but it's also like simply like biology, and that to me speaks a lot to sort of about men and the way that they fail to perceive themselves in the way they interact with those around them, with their society, and I don't know, to me, I also wanted to like eschew the unnecessary tropes of the genre, like that I felt like were just there to be there because they're traditional. Like if I bring an archetype or a trope into the story, I need it to have a real purpose aside from just filling up space. And so, this character does not have a secret identity. He's effectively like a local celebrity. Why wouldn't you want that in the modern day? Like this idea that like, oh, my family is not safe. Well, there is no fucking Joker in this world.
Yeah.
This is the first guy to do it. And when a guy can leap tall buildings in a single bound, and I'm trying to think of like the physical feats of strength that he shows off in the story.
I mean, he does lift a build, like there's a building on fire. There's a scene where, and then he obviously is super fast, and then he's holding this building up. I mean, there's all sorts of things such as that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, why wouldn't you want people to know who you are and what you're capable of and like what you're bringing into the world? So, and because the story is so much about intimacy in many ways, like romantically, emotionally, but also like in terms of community, like this guy spends his days saving people. There is an immediate, an instantaneous intimacy that you have with somebody whose life you just saved. Like that is that is something I don't think we talk about a lot in superhero comics, which is crazy because those are the things that matter most. And it's those little moments that in my brain would come to motivate someone to do what they do, because it's fucking hard. It is like this character does not have it easy. He is not Superman, who is going to be able to lift a cruise ship with one hand, because this world has a degree of pseudophysics wherein he would run through the hull of the ship because he's too small. There's not enough surface area for somebody as strong as him to actually lift something that big up. So he has to process and think and consider how he's actually going to attack the situation, which to me not only imbues within this character a higher level of effort, because it takes more for him to actually be functional, but an even higher level of concern, because there is the potential of more backlash, right? Like if somebody is falling off of a building, he can't just rip down at light speed, because he would literally run through somebody.
Yeah.
Like, or if he catches them without having them attached to him and slowing the rate of speed down, he could Gwen Stacy somebody. You know what I mean?
Just thinking of Gwen Stacy.
I was too.
Yeah. So there's a lot. I mean, even in his first sort of outing as a superhero, he's like, well, like I'm too far away to jump. If I jump, I'm going to fall through the floor. Like,
Right. I love that.
He just
that you
starts to
bring that
yell.
in.
Yeah, I like that little detail. It's because a lot of people don't realize, like, you, like, no shit, you have a degree in this area, so like you kind of know what you're talking about. No big deal. And I like that something that you hit on too about this, because I think this speaks towards how we view men in society in general. Like, it's one of those things where, like, the man is always kind of supposed to be like the family, you know, like, think of me as a dad. I'm supposed to always be on my game, always be this. Like, in our kids' eyes, I'm supposed to be that hero. Like, I have all the answers. I've got the dad has magic, so to speak, you know, all that kind of stuff. And you even see it. There's a page and he's just like, you know what? Let the firefighters handle it today. And, you know, his
It's like, let them
girlfriend's
earn their paycheck.
yeah. And she's
Yeah.
like, you would let ordinary people do this? And then she kind of is like, how could you do that? And it's like, it's that whole responsibility that society in general kind of places upon a man. This isn't something to like, we're going to mansplain why men have it bad in the world. No, this is like, this is real stuff that a lot of people don't deal with or don't really realize it at the same time, which is great.
And the
Mhm.
irony is that, like, I mean, so much of this story is about the way that the people that you surround yourself with and how that can either enable you to be great or enable you to fall. I mean,
Yeah.
the reality of that particular moment when he's being sort of scorned by her for being selfish is, I mean, one, could you blame him? But like, the reality is he is the only person who would have saved that one girl. Like,
Yeah.
she would have died if he was not guilted into doing that job. And it just, yeah, it does say a lot about these roles where it's just like, you're asking a lot of somebody, but the reality is if you're the only person who could do it, you know, aren't you a little obligated? But then what is that pressure like, you know, when you are the only person capable of being that for somebody or
Mhm.
doing something for somebody? And in tandem with like that, I mean, that particular scene, like, it haunts him for the rest of the series. Like, it's
Mhm.
looked at it. You would think, you know, to the average person, it would be this triumph of him overcoming his selfishness. And at, you know, towards the end of that first issue, when they're unveiling, they're like, we're gonna build a statue to
He's like,
honor this
okay.
moment. And he looks up with it, coursing with anxiety, and he's like, this is a monument to my greatest failure. And that's how he will always remember it, because he would not have done it if not for Issa. And so
Yeah.
so much of this project is also about the female or the feminine role in a man's life and how it makes us better. Like, it there is a real intimate, like, balancing act, like, that having your complementary piece can sort of
It can push you to greatness in some ways.
or it can destroy you.
Yeah.
You know, it's and so this story plays around with that a lot too. You know, like, I mean, I said in the forward, like, I didn't really have a dad. I was raised by a woman, and I feel like as a grown man, like, it's taught me to be a lot of different things. And I feel like maybe I've lost out on learning certain things from a father that I should have. I have a very different perspective on a lot of things, specifically because I was raised by a single mom. And so we're sort of taking some of those concepts and exploring them in this story as well. I mean, the second issue really gets into John's past, and his upbringing and sort of how that affects his responses to the world, in tandem with how his abilities will either dictate his happiness, effectively will dictate whether or not he can be God or not. So yeah, we're really spinning a lot of plates and trying to use this this iconography to say something a little different, which is, I mean, very hard, because it's a genre that's existed for 85 years, that is
Yeah.
constantly being pumped out in periodical media without any rest. But you know what? I think that we have the team to do it.
Right.
Well, I think, go ahead, Lauren.
No, you're good.
I was just going to say, I mean, I can see how it's, yeah, the superhero genre. A lot of people are, oh, super, but this isn't something that you're just going to typically see. Like, you don't know the story. If you just see a superhero, I promise you, opening these, you have no idea how this goes. Cause like we just talked about, there's so many real world, real life situations in, like, sure, he's this guy with all this power, but how does it affect him? It's a very good spin and a very different take, which is why, like, dude, I sing your praises so much. It's not just to like, you're not just my friend pumping tires. It's no, like, no shit. This is a really clever, thought out twist and a genre that really is saturated. I mean, it is,
Right.
but nobody ever thinks about, like, you're telling me Clark Kent Superman every day, every second is happy to go out there and save the most mundane thing? No, I mean, there's no possible way. And
Right.
so this is what that attacks. Like it just does.
Well, and that's how I feel like this is so different too, because you see so many different spins on superheroes. Like The Boys is a great example. That's something we've really never seen. It's so dark and so tortured, and probably the most realistic thing that would happen if we had superheroes. But a lot of times our superheroes we see have to fight through their pain and their anger, and and a lot of times they're like, oh, I just need to go punch something, and they're getting through it. But your superhero doesn't have that. He can't. He has to be in a good place. So he has to have more mind. I mean, like you talk about mind over, body kind of thing. He has to be in such a good state of mind to do anything, to have these superpowers. So that's such like a unique take, because I feel like that's such again another trope that you're not playing on, is I just need to go punch something. I mean, as much as I love Supernatural, that's Dean Winchester always, I just need to go punch something. So this guy can't suppress his emotions. He can't just go, I went for the head. Like he can't do those things.
Yeah,
So
and
it's very unique.
thank you. I mean, it leads to a lot of I think because of that, it like we've really kind of turned away from a lot of tradition. I mean, like, this character is, because of the way his biology works, that's obviously going to affect the way he thinks. And like he falls in love with this woman really fast, and like he is head over heels for this woman. And you think about the reality is like, yeah, if you were with someone and after spending time with them, you could literally do anything you wanted physically, how would that affect you? Like, there is a feedback loop there.
It's
You
a
know what
play
I
on the
mean?
honeymoon phase. I mean, you find love. Like, think about it, man. How does love make somebody feel? Well, it feels like you could take on the world.
Yeah, and this guy literally can. And so, like I just, I know a lot of people were like, man, he really like he really spills the beans with her fast. And it's like, well, yeah, the first time he meets her, he's able to leap a tall building in a single bound. Like, of course he wants more. Like he wants
Right.
to
It's
deepen
like a
this
drug.
connection.
Yeah.
Because yeah, love is a drug,
Dopamine.
and particularly for him in the way that it corresponds with his physiology, it leads to godhood effectively. And so of course, like he's gonna be open, he's gonna want to connect with people. Like, that there's a major scene in issue 2 where he's speaking to the people of New York City, and he hears among this crowd of smiling people and flashing lights, he hears all of his critics, he hears all of these people putting him down, and he has to confront that. And it obviously affects him in a major way. So yeah, it's so much of this is about his emotionality and him learning to take on the world even when he doesn't feel prepared to do it, because he's the only person who can.
Right.
And I think that's an interesting, it speaks to what Matt was saying earlier. And I don't even think this is just a male thing. I think this is an everybody thing. Like when you
Yeah.
have a role in other people's lives, and a role that is maybe so specific, or that maybe you are just the most equipped to fill, what happens when you don't feel like doing it that day? Like, what is what is the guilt of not being able to do it, or what are the consequences of not being able to do it when you need it most? Like, yeah,
Letting people down.
it says so much about it. Like, I, even as a writer, there are times where like I get in my own bag and I'm like, oh, this is awful, this is awful, this is awful, I'm going to crash the ship, in the middle of writing something. Was I ever good at it to begin with? And then the next thing you know, like, I'm actually writing dog shit for several days because my brain is programmed into thinking I'm going to write dog shit. And so, yeah, it's just this book to me is so much about like that emotionality and this character's response to it.
Right. Well, and it's interesting how, you're saying the significant other can lift you up or put you down. And that's gonna, I mean, obviously we've only read issue 1. Issue 2 is in the Kickstarter right now, but I could see that weighing on her. Cause like, even, as a mother of 3 and a wife, sometimes I feel like everybody's happiness is on me. I have a
Yeah.
responsibility to make my husband and my kids happy. And sometimes that gets overwhelming, and I need to focus on me. But when I focus on me, I don't have time to make them happy as much. So I feel like I could see that being a thing, for her.
Oh, yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, especially when, she right off the rip is sort of the representation of his moral compass, like it's like she's bringing the Clark Kent earnesty to the Superman in a way, as his quote unquote Lois Lane.
So
So
she
that,
definitely gave me some Lois Lane vibes.
yo, yeah, for sure. Like, how can you, like badass, like I didn't want her to be like the damsel and I've never, like, I don't know, I think it's evident through the, the all of my work. Like, I'm not really into damsel in distress. I like a woman who is like fleshed out and has her own intentions, and so Issa is such a huge part of this story, of this character. I mean, their relationship is the linchpin behind the entire story. Like, the story is almost as much about marriage as it is about everything that we've talked about so far. So yeah, she's been a real fun to write, for sure.
I look forward to seeing her get fleshed out more.
I mean, it's evident. Yeah, Rise is easily pushing the superhero genre forward, I think, in the right direction. It's not giving you more of the same. It's absolutely giving you real people problems to a superhero. And I think that's what's great. And as we kind of, have talked about it, but issue 2 right now, we're kickstarting. Tell us a little bit about where people can find the Kickstarter, upcoming conventions, how they can support you and your team specifically in this comic book.
Yeah, so the Kickstarter, most immediate way to do it, we've got the first 2 issues available on the campaign, which you can mix and match using like your base reward tier. Like, there are collector bundles and there are catch-up tiers. You can also just pick and choose whatever covers you might want. And the great thing is because we're only on issue 2, all of the covers from issue 1 are still available, so you've got so much optionality. You can find that by searching Rise number 1-2 and then Kickstarter, or then comic, and it should pop up in your desired search engine of choice. But you can also check me out on any of my socials. There's always going to be a link in the bio with a big old link tree, at pocketwatchpress on Instagram and Facebook, pwatchpress on Twitter or X or Twix, whatever you want to call it.
Whatever we call it these days.
Twix. That's cute. I've heard that.
But that it's a great way to get in on the ground floor. We've got discounts, first of all, for being a part of the project so early. We've also got great opportunities to just be a real part of the production of this book. You can get drawn in as a character, which we've had several people do.
That's so fun.
And they get to be in these iconic moments, like issue 1, page 1, guy gets pulled away from the bar so that John can sit next to Issa. That was a backer. The mayor of New York City is a backer.
Did the backer, the first guy, know he was going to not be such a nice dude?
I don't think so, but I also thought it was like a really funny.
It's fun to play around in that. Yeah, like some people will be like, "Oh wow, that's me." I got a kick out of that kind of stuff. Yeah,
it gets to be kind of special, fun. It's and we've done it for most of our campaign. Like in Minutes to Midnight, Time Fleeting, War Immortal. Somebody got to get shot in the eye with an arrow. Like we just like to make them really fun and make people feel like rewarded for being involved, and they get immortalized in fun ways. But like outside of that, Ryan has been very generous in offering super affordable commissions, and they're hand-drawn commissions. These aren't like digital commissions that are being printed. They're pencil, ink, and or marker, and a bunch of different sizes. So if you like for dirt cheap, like you can get a Rise like 3x5 inch character sketch for $25, and there are a couple different steps in between, but you can get a full like 11x14 or 11x17 full bodied, fully rendered and colored piece for like 200 and something, like on the lower end of that. So a lot of, and Ryan's going to be huge. Like he's maybe the biggest, like he's going to be the biggest hidden gem in superhero comics. Like he is right now. And I feel like not taking advantage of getting his art while he's at this stage in his career and still producing as if he were at the height of his powers. Like that would be such a missed opportunity. Like, I have commissions from him. I pay him every week for art and covers. I own original commission art from him because he's so damn good. And so, a lot of great opportunities. I think we've got an amazing gallery of covers on this book, both for issue 1 and issue 2. So, you've got a lot of great opportunity there just to get a cool piece. But the books are broadly like the most affordable on Kickstarter. Like I mean, issue 1's 40 pages, issue 2's 34 pages. You can get both of them physically for as low as $22, where the average Kickstarter book that is 20 to 24 pages is charging $15 a pop. This is double the size. crazy thick paper stock. And the first issue has like 2 triple page spread foldouts. Like for anybody who's like watching the video version of the podcast, like when do you see
You don't
this
get that at all.
in a comic?
Oh wow.
And
Oh, that's
mind
really
you,
cool.
for like
I
what
only
if
see
you
that
get,
in Playboy.
yeah,
I was-
right. So it's like,
Oh,
you
that's
know,
pretty.
when do you get that? And for so little money, it's a 40-page book with 2 triple page spreads. And if you buy the catch-up bundle, it's $11.
How many issues do you expect Rise to go?
Probably 4 or 5 of these oversized issues. Like we're gonna keep these books at around like 32 to 40 pages a piece.
Okay.
And I started saying that we were going to cap at 3, and I realized how wrong I was as I was writing the story. Because I realized, like, in order for some of these emotional beats to land the way I want them to, I've got to let some moments air out. So yeah, we're looking at, I'm just going to say 5 at this point, because every time I feel like I'm leaning like the conservative route or like taking it a step further, it tends to be the latter.
Right.
So yeah, probably about 5 of these oversized issues. When all said and done, maybe close to 200 pages. So it will end up being the longest thing that I've worked on so far. At the end of the
Do
day,
you
which is
think-
crazy.
Yeah. Do you think you'll ever come back to him in the future?
We leave it in a place where I think we could.
Okay.
I would need to have a story that was so good
It was worth it.
that it would be worth it and worth taking that ending that to me, the ending to me feels perfect. And incredibly unpredictable. I don't think anybody has any clue how this story is going to end. For me to make that a checkpoint as opposed to a finish line, I would need a really special story. And I remember, like, I would hear the same thing about the Helix Project too. It's just like, I love the way that story ended. For me to pick that up and do more with it, I would need a really special story to take that moment. And not that I really do think it does take that moment and make it matter a little bit less, because it is not the end.
Gotcha.
And it puts a lot more pressure upon us to make sure that we have an ending that is as good, if not better. So yeah, I think I could pick up with it. I don't have any immediate plans to do like a second volume. But I'm really excited for people to get to sort of the meat of what we're trying to do with this story, because it's, like, emotionally and in terms of what we're trying to say, I think it's unlike any superhero comic that's ever existed.
It's fair. I would absolutely agree with that 100%. This is one of the better superhero stories that you're probably going to read. It's very vastly different. We've talked about it, ad nauseum at this point. Like, I cannot say enough good things about it. And getting to chat and get inside your brain a bit. People, like, I really hope they show notes. This has the Kickstarter. This has everything that Trevor has, all the socials. So I hope you guys, seriously, because this man's going to be running comic book convention soon. He's going to be up there with some of the greats. You, Ryan, the whole crew. It's a matter of time. It really is. I fully believe that. And I get it. Like, yeah, get the commissions, but at the same time, man, like, get in early. It's like every band. We were there at the beginning, right? So it's going to be nice to be like, hey, I saw Paramore and Blink at Warped Tour once upon a time, and tickets are $20. And it's like, all right, Grandma, let's get you to bed. But
I still have my Blink 182 ticket that was like $25.
I have all of my ticket stubs. This is one of those things.
Hey,
you back
this for last week's. Sorry.
You back something like this, you're going to get quality. You're going to get somebody who cares. And then at the end of the day, 5 years from now, when it's San Diego Comic-Con and you're like, he's announcing this big project,
dude, when he was on Kickstarter.
Exactly. And we've still got big creators doing Kickstarter. That's not saying anyone's too good.
That's
but
true.
Seriously, like, it's really good. I appreciate you taking the time, Trevor, to come and chat with us. It's always a pleasure, dude. Getting to get inside your mind and just always getting to hang out, man. So thank you.
Oh man, I should be thanking you. It's a privilege to be here. It's a privilege to have these insightful conversations about this stuff. It just simmers in your brain for so long. So the fact that anybody wants to have a conversation about it is always really welcome. But you guys generate such great, insightful conversation, and it's just like, as the creator, that's what you want people to ask the right questions so that you have an excuse to spill the beans. But because it's so much less fun when you're just like, let me tell you about this thing, and why. So I appreciate the opportunity and the leverage to be able to talk about this story in depth and what it means, what we're trying to do. And it's the team assembled on this book is perfect. I think it's probably the most perfect pairing of creatives on a project. Like, all of our personalities, all of our skills, I think, really come out from Ryan's incredible expressive character acting to the way that Fabi in the colors emits a sense of atmosphere and mood, to the way that Matthias as the letterer just ties everything like very perfectly into a bow and puts the stamp on the visual identity of this book. They're an amazing team. I'm privileged that I got to begin the most anxious project of my career with the most perfect collaborators. And I hope people give this book a try. And I'm grateful for any consideration they might have, because at the end of the day, this is more than a product to me. This is a piece of me, a thing that I'm trying to wrestle with in my own life and express it through these stories and these worlds and these characters. So anybody that is doing that is kind of just giving me a chance as a human being, which, you know, I couldn't be anything but grateful for. So thank you for having me. Thank you to anybody who's listening, and especially to anybody who reads Rise.
100%. Lauren, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I think I said them all. But yeah, go get this comic. You just go to Kickstarter.com, and even if you just search Trevor Fernandez with an S, not a Z, his stuff pops up.
I mean, yeah, and then just follow the link here too. Easiest thing. Make sure you follow
Matt put it in the show notes,
for future projects. Yes, I did the least amount of work for that, but you know, the show notes there. But like, follow. Like I said, Trevor's a great person. I can say it at the end of the day, but his art, I'm more of actions. So go and check out the writing, the work that this team has done. It's truly amazing. And I promise you, it's not your stereotypical superhero story, and you're going to be pleasantly surprised you pick this up. So rise to the occasion, pick up Rise. And Trevor, man, anytime, you already know, you got my number. Anytime you want to pull through, beep, beep, come on through, man. We're always down to get to hang out, and yeah, man. We'll talk to you soon, everybody. Let us know what your thoughts. If you back this, tag us, tag Trevor. Obviously, we want to know. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. We will see you next time, and a good heavenly cheers to you all tonight.
The content you are listening to is part of the Nerd Initiative Podcast Network. For more info about the home of pop culture positivity, check out nerdinitiative.com. The content you are listening to is part of the Nerd Initiative Podcast Network. For more info about the home of pop culture positivity, be sure to check out nerdinitiative.com.
It can get lonely climbing Mount McKinley, so to entertain myself, I go to ChumbaCasino.com. At Chumba Casino, I can play hundreds of online casino-style games for free, like online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Plus, I get a daily login bonus. It's just too bad that up here, I don't have anyone to share my excitement with. Woohoo!
Live the Chumba life. Anytime, anywhere. Play for free now at ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
All right, we're all set for the party. I've trimmed the tree, hung the mistletoe, and paired all those weird-shaped knives and forks with the appropriate cheeses. And I plugged in the Bartesian.
Bartesian?
It's a home cocktail maker that makes over 60 premium cocktails, plus a whole lot of seasonal favorites, too. I just got it for $50 off. So, how about a Cosmopolitan or a mistletoe margarita?
I'm thirsty.
Watch. I just pop in a capsule, choose my strength, and...
Wow, it's beginning to feel more seasonal in here already.
If your holiday party doesn't have a bartender, then you become the bartender. Unless you've got a Bartesian, because Bartesian crafts every cocktail perfectly in as little as 30 seconds. And I just got it for $50 off.
'Tis the season to be jollier.
Add some holiday flavor to every celebration with the sleek, sophisticated home cocktail maker, Bartesian. Get $50 off any cocktail maker at bartesian.com/cocktail. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail.
Recently, a new client called me and started by saying, "Mr. Morgan, I really need your help, but I'm just a nobody." Those words stunned me, and I immediately called him back, and we're now helping him and his family after a terrible accident. I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. Everybody who comes to our firm at their time of need is a somebody. I grew up poor, but my grandmother was like a queen to us. At Morgan & Morgan, our goal is to level the playing field for you and your family at your time of need. The insurance company has unlimited money and resources. You need a firm who can fight them toe-to-toe. For right at 30 years, we have fought them in courtrooms throughout America. Our results speak for themselves. And always remember this, everybody is a somebody, and nobody is a nobody. Visit forthepeople.com to learn about our firm, Morgan & Morgan, for the people.
Injured? Visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on chumbacasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at chumbacasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's chumbacasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, we're all set for the party. I've trimmed the tree, hung the mistletoe, and paired all those weird-shaped knives and forks with the appropriate cheeses. And I plugged in the Bartesian.
Bartesian?
It's a home cocktail maker that makes over 60 premium cocktails, plus a whole lot of seasonal favorites, too. I just got it for $50 off. So, how about a Cosmopolitan or a mistletoe margarita?
I'm thirsty.
Watch. I just pop in a capsule, choose my strength, and...
Wow, it's beginning to feel more seasonal in here already.
If your holiday party doesn't have a bartender, then you become the bartender. Unless you've got a Bartesian, because Bartesian crafts every cocktail perfectly in as little as 30 seconds. And I just got it for $50 off.
'Tis the season to be jollier.
Add some holiday flavor to every celebration with the sleek, sophisticated home cocktail maker, Bartesian. Get $50 off any cocktail maker at bartesian.com/cocktail. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail.